Am I audible to all of you? Online students, can you confirm if you all can hear me? Hi Nidhi. Anamika, good evening. Pankaj, good afternoon. Sachrit, okay. All can hear me loud and clear? Okay, ठीक है, good, nice. We start off. So, while I'm starting off, this is one of the concerns that we have had, and I talked about this morning. Consciously keep some time of your preparation, either on the daily basis or weekly, whatever suits you, to work on your thinking skills also. This morning I was telling the students in the offline class, you must reflect on issues, you must think about issues, not a mechanical reading without understanding. Of course, you'll have a lot of topics which you do not know. As you read polity, as you read culture, as you read environment, economy, आपका understanding deeper होगा. Okay, so it's like you know, imagine this is where I want you to be as a thinking man, as a problem-solving man. Okay, and the route to this is, one is, yes, know the concepts, economy concepts, environment concepts, culture issues, social issues, history samjho. So what happens is, most of us enter preparation at this level and we remain trapped here. We don't elevate ourselves into this. And the questions that are asked, they demand कि सोच के आप answer लिखो. But most of us, what we do is, we are trapped here, we finish course, without much thinking, we directly dive into this. This is the wrong path. Okay, so I have taken up two issues in today's reading session. It's a beautiful one. I do not know how many of you have read this article. In Indian Express by Pratap, Bhanu, Mehta, and he writes about some of the ideas of S. Radhakrishnan. And this article was published on 5th of September. Okay, so maybe on the occasion of Teachers' Day. Ab batao honestly, offline, online, how many of you have read the article? Padha aapne? 1, 2, 3. Okay. Offline, so 3 people have read. Online, how many of you have read? And those who have read, how many of you understood what was being told? Did you make some notes? Jotings banaya aapne? फिर क्यों पढ़ा? Okay. अगर जॉटिंग्स नहीं बना रहे हो, you cannot transcend here. Trust me. फिर आपने पढ़ लिया, but उसको आप यूज नहीं कर पाओगे. Ultimately, I said no. Whatever you are studying, whatever you are, thinking, आपको यूज करना होगा आंसर में, right? तो अगर आप नोट नहीं बना रहे हो, अगर पढ़ भी लिया तो मैं करूंगा क्या इसका? ऐसे no, you might as well go to sleep. Okay, वो जो 1 घंटा लगा होगा पढ़ने के लिए, if you have read the whole thing. Okay, I mean, it took me 2 readings to get the gist of what he wants to say, and it's a beautiful article, a very powerful article about our times, about our challenges. Okay, समझ में नहीं आया था. Okay, that's an honest confession. Okay, and you must look up who Pratap Bhanu Mehta is. Okay, he's a very powerful writer. He's one of those thought leaders of our today's generation. He has been respected as a scholar, as a teacher, as a philosopher. Okay, he's a very influential man. So इनका तो नाम discussions on social issues, political issues, talk about Pratap Bhanu Mehta. Okay, and of course the next article is on agriculture, because most of you have just come out of agriculture class. Okay, and yes, you could have applied this. Pragya, I mean, you have said it, others don't say it. Okay, हम जब पूछेंगे ना, tell me who are the Indians who have shaped India, आप 4-5 नाम के beyond जा ही नहीं सकते हो. इंदिरा गांधी बोल दोगे शायद, और मे बी महात्मा गांधी बोल दिया, some of you तिलक बोल दोगे, बोस बोल दोगे, and वे ask you बताओ क्या किया है, again most of you are blank. हमारे imagination में people like Radhakrishnan, Zakir Hussain, people like contributors of modern India, it includes the philosophers, okay, which includes, if you know this man, even Osho for that matter, okay, how he has influenced, and the other man, Krishnamurti, thank you so much. Okay, you must read up what were their ideas, Krishnamurti's ideas, a very powerful philosopher. So, agar aap log apne aap ko, you don't expose yourself to some wider readings, you will have challenges. You have the copies with you? Yeah. ठीक है, let this be a beginning there. I can only see, as a teacher, मेरा objective तो यही है, बस at least एक बार expose कर दूं आपको कि these are the type of writings and readings which matter. Ultimately करना क्या है, long term में तो आप खुद ही उठाओगे. Okay, let's start off now. So, Pratap Bhanu Mehta, okay, writes on S. Radhakrishnan, still speaks to our time. So, what ideas he had are still relevant to us. I'll go slowly because a powerful one, and okay, let's see. And one of your friend has said, "Padha to aisa samajh mein nahi aaya." ठीक है, nice, good, you confessed it at least. Let's start off. On October 20th, 36, Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan delivered the inaugural lecture as the newly elected Spalding Professor of Eastern Religion and Ethics at the University of Oxford. So nice facts. Okay, Oxford में थे and Professor of Religion and Ethics. Okay, ठीक है. That lecture entitled "The World's Unborn Soul" seems as much a tract of our times as it did for his. Remember, he's talking in 1936. Almost 100 years, 90 years to each almost. Okay, and what he's saying is so relevant to what we are seeing around us today. Okay, so this must awe you here. A man of his brilliance, कुछ बोल रहे हैं like Vivekananda. Okay, what he said back then, okay, in the conference of religion, still relevant today. Okay, so he says that those are as much a tract of our times as it did for his. The world Radhakrishnan describes is a world of feverish energy, chaotic activity, immense creativity. ये एक technique of writing है. You write a verb or a noun with a powerful adjective. Okay, feverish is restlessness, restless energy, chaotic activity, confusion, and immense creativity. And you can see that this is also relevant today. Okay, but it is also the confronting an abyss. Abyss का मतलब क्या होता है? A very deep hole is the abyss. A as in no, bis as in base. Okay, the deepest part of oceans are called as abyss. So while the world has lot of energy, lot of activity, lot of creativity, yet we are also confronting an abyss, a deep hole, which is about morally confused, racked with uncertainty, with no sense of where all the political chips are going to fall. Very right for today, no? Okay, there's so much of confusion around us, so much of uncertainty कि पता नहीं कहाँ ultimately countries जाने वाले हैं. Look at the political chaos we have around us, conflicts. I mean, we almost are at the edge of a World War III, और शायद है हम पता नहीं चल रहा हमको. Okay, and all kind of disruptions, China, US. Look at our neighborhood. Okay, Bangladesh. Bangladesh was one of the poster boys of developing nations. A nation which was communal. It moved towards secular values. A poor nation, rising per capita income, employment, good women status, a nation which was, considered as the consequence of the India's partition, and it was looking nice. Okay, people like Muhammad Yunus, okay, who started the concept of microfinance, and today it is slipping into God knows what unfortunate development of future. Nothing can be more unfortunate than people killing each other in the name of God. Okay, and I firmly believe, agar this is what religion is, to hell with religion. It's अच्छा है कि यार I don't कुछ काम नहीं करना religious मैंने, चुपचाप बैठ के अपना पढ़ाई करना है. Okay, so yes, look at where the political chips are going to fall. The biggest disquiet stems from the fact that, as an empirical matter, the world is a single community of fate. This is the reality. Okay. Now, it is not single community, it's a single community of fate. का मतलब क्या है? हमारा destiny intertwined है. Correct. Our destinies are interlinked. What I do will impact you. What you do will impact me. My future will impact your future. He writes, for the first time in the history of the planet, its inhabitants have become one whole, each and every part of which is affected by the fortunes of every other. Science and technology, without aiming at its result, have achieved the unity. He is talking in the context of telecommunications, telegraph, back then whatever railways we had, back then whatever transport systems we had, and it must have been such a remarkable change. Of course, abhi dekhte hain to kya hi tha 36 mein batao. But for him, it was still a remarkable change that we are moving towards some kind of a common fortune. Economic and political phenomena are increasingly imposing on us the obligation to treat the world as a unit. Currencies are linked, commerce is international, political fortunes are interdependent. My recommendation to you guys is, ऐसे sentences को ना रट लेते हैं. You will not have a good writing that tells us how the world is interconnected. And see, एक problem आता है बच्चों का in essays writing कि sir quotes लिखेंगे. And I ask them, give me examples of quotes. They give examples like, okay, look before you leap. एक और example दो quote का, all that glitters is not gold. एक और quote दो, the quote like, democracy for the people of the people. Okay. Now, there's a difference between quote and a proverb. Quote क्या होता है? Quote is, somebody has said something and I am referring to it. That's a quote. Okay. And trust me, most of us do not know any quote. Because quote का मतलब है, आपको रटना पड़ेगा sentence in the words of who the person said it. Right? So, if in the words of Nehru, the tryst of India's destiny, okay, at the stroke of midnight when the world sleeps, India shall wake to freedom and light. That's the quote of Nehru. So, agar aapko quote likhna hai, you consciously must maintain a notebook of important things people have said. Make a notebook. 5 pages, economic quotes. 6 pages, maybe conflict wale quotes. 6 pages, maybe quotes on women issues. 6-7 pages, quotes probably on technology. So, ye ek waisa wala quote hai. A quote by Radhakrishnan, and look how powerful write down. He writes, economic and political phenomena are increasingly imposing on us the obligation to treat the world as a unit. Matlab, world as one unit is no longer a luxury to consider. It's an obligation. Aapko karna hi padega. Okay, look at, and again, I'm surprised that he's saying this in 36. इसीलिए बोलते हैं ना, Radhakrishnan was a visionary. He was far ahead of his times. A visionary idea. 100 साल, and a time when there was no internet, there was no mobile phone, time when there was no bullet trains, time there was no space technology the way we know it today. Okay. And he's talking about the obligation to treat the world as a unit. Currencies are linked, commerce is international, the political fortunes are interdependent. इसका best example था India का freedom movement. India's independence inspired whole range of decolonization. Africa, it was almost like a dominoes effect. India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Burma, उस तरफ अफ्रीका में, all of them got independence almost same time, आगे पीछे couple of years से. Okay, so that's how he says the political fortunes of the nations. And 36 का मतलब है, we're talking about, if you remember, the second round table conference की बात हो रही है उस time में. And India was a very important part of this war efforts. World War हुआ नहीं है, but we can see conflicts are happening now. ठीक है? Okay. Yet the forms of political organization we inhabit, the consciousness we embody in our daily lives, the identities we give allegiance to, are still structured in ways that make us oblivious of this fact. The world is linked, but हमारा consciousness, हमारे identities, our daily lives, our allegiance does not respect the idea that world is interlinked. आप आज के डेट में देखो, I'm talking about my cultural nationalism, I'm talking about my local problems of environment, I'm talking about heat wave India में हो गया, and we are concerned about it. Floods Delhi में हो गया, concerned about it. The fact is these problems are part of the bigger global issues. Climate change is not a local issue anymore. Okay, but the way we live our lives, the way we inhabit our lives, the way we have identities, we don't seem to acknowledge that the world is so connected. As he writes, the sense that mankind must become a community is still a casual whim. Whims क्या होता है? Okay, yeah, it's a fanciful, exactly, fanciful idea है. Casual whim, बैठे बैठे casually सोच लिया, हाँ यार हम सब एक हैं. सबसे बड़ा गाली आज के डेट में है वासुदेव कुटुंबकम. Trust me, a totally useless word in the times that we live in and in times what we do. Okay, we are insincere in saying that. And if you look back, I mean, I've told this to many people, have a look कि वासुदेव कुटुंबकम का genesis क्या है? It's a story in Panchantantra about a fox and a crow. The crow has a bread in its beak. The fox says, मुझे वो bread चाहिए. The crow says, no, I won't give you. The fox is trying to lure the crow. कि आओ नीचे आओ, तो फंसा रहा है. Okay, he says in Sanskrit, okay, क्या तेरा, क्या मेरा, the world is one, we are brothers, come down. The fox is trying to trap the crow in saying, Vasudev Kutumbakam, that we are all together, brothers, sisters, नीचे आओ, साथ खाते हैं. Imagine the friendship of a fox and a crow, क्या होने वाला है? Is exactly what's playing out in our world today. All those who say Vasudev Kutumbakam, you can be very sure. Okay, the fox mentality calling the crow. ठीक है? So it's a casual whim, it's a fanciful idea of which we don't understand. Gautam Buddha told the story to tell his people, be careful of people who try to be too friendly. Not that we are friends. That be careful of people who are smooth talkers. Okay. उनसे बचने के लिए कहा था the concept of Vasudev Kutumbakam. Okay. He is very right. He says that it's still a casual whim, a vague aspiration, not generally accepted as a conscious ideal or an urgent practical necessity, moving us to feel the dignity of common citizenship and the call of common duty. It's an insincere idea. Vasudev Kutumbakam is an insincere idea. The concept of globalism is an insincere idea. इसका एक और मजाक हमारा है, the concept of globalization as free fair trade. It's a very big joke played on lot of developing nations. Let's all get together, free fair trade. You open your boundaries, I open my boundaries, I sell, you buy, you sell, I buy. All of us agreed. We remove the boundaries, remove the tariffs to realize कि यार हमने तो कर दिया, आप तो नहीं कर रहे हो. Okay. This is another example of how we have misused this idea of common globalism. So in globalization, so one of you was asking one of the classes में, sir इतना ज़्यादा countries में anti-globalization sentiments क्यों हैं? Okay, why? Because globalization देखा जाए as a concept is a very powerful idea. Let's all get together, let's all trade, and all of us develop. The idea of globalization was all become a part of the development story. Okay, and globalization was seemed to be synonymous with capitalism and growth, synonymous with democracy and justice, synonymous with equality and equity issues. But ऐसा हुआ नहीं, right? What we find is we're taken for a ride. So the angst against globalization दिखाई देता है as angst against democracy also, as anger against secularism also. आपने कहा था कि हम सब equal हो जाएंगे. We all will live equal just life. ऐसे कहाँ हुआ? Okay, that's why the anger that we have manifests in the form of anti-democracy movements, the rise of the far right, the rise of Nazi sentiments, the rise of cultural, sometimes bigotry and cultural narrow nationalism. इसका rise हुआ है because of the fact that we have misused the concept of globalization. तो यही कहना चाह रहे हैं. इसलिए casual whim, not accepted as a conscious ideal or an urgent practical necessity. I mean, the word obligation दोबारा आ रहा है. World as one हमारा अब compulsion है. You have to work like that. Okay. Attempts to bring about human unity through mechanical means. The social media is an example of a mechanical means. कि लोगों को साथ बैठा दो. I call a conference. लोगों को साथ बैठा दो. Let's have a UN. All sit and talk. It's a mechanical act, not a sincere act to address the concerns of the world. So if we have these attempts to bring about human unity through mechanical means, through political adjustments, the best example है हमारा coalition governments where we are ideologically different. It's an example of sheer lust for power. अभी तक तो हम दोनों गाली दे रहे थे. Suddenly we find that we are common friends. It's an example of political adjustments, right? Suddenly if you find tomorrow America and China are friends, डर लगेगा यार क्या हो? What's the game going on there? Isn't it? It's an example of politics, and these cannot survive. China is a communist country. China doesn't talk about religion, culture, and suddenly you find China has become friend of Iran. अरे ये कहाँ चला गया? Okay, you talk about America as an upholder of democracy, America upholder of human rights. It says नहीं सब कुछ ठीक हो रहा है गाजा स्ट्रिप में, इजराइल जो कर रहा है सही कर रहा है. Now this is a dangerous thing. Okay, you expected Saudi Arabia to act in some ways. Okay, so ये जो adjustments है ना, they make us cynical here. Okay, so Ganesh, he is the epitome of political U-turns. वो इतना बार यू हो चुका है, टॉकिंग अबाउट नीतीश कुमार, अब वो परफेक्ट फुल सर्कल लगता है हमें, राइट? सो वी आर नो लॉन्गर सरप्राइज एनीमोर. राइट के बाद फिर राइट के बाद फिर राइट घूम के, हाँ. तो बट आई मीन सी द जोक एक्चुअली इज ऑन अस. नीतीश कुमार इज नॉट द कल्प्रिट. ही इज अ ब्लडी स्मार्ट मैन. ही नोज एग्जैक्टली हाउ टू प्ले द गेम्स. Whenever I see the videos of godmen, no, जो बकवास कर रहे होते हैं, okay, and you feel like laughing. I said, नहीं, ये laugh तो हमारे ऊपर है. Okay, if you make a stupid story about science and convince the population, and the population is totally into a trance, कि क्या बोल दिया? The joke is not on the godman. The joke is on us. Okay, so it is not his U-turn. It's our complicated. Distorted preferences. Yes. Anyways, let's come back. I said it's a very powerful writing. ये आर्टिकल को आप 4-5 बार पढ़ना और इसका कोट निकाल के लिख लेना. Okay, and having read this, I am now keen to read about the life and works of Radhakrishnan. Okay, मुझे लग रहा है कि वो पढ़ लिया ना, I'll have lot of content for many other writings. Okay, let's get back. Attempts to bring about unity through mechanical means, through political adjustments, have proved abortive. The misalignment between what determines our fate and how we think our identities was a recipe. Okay, and how we think. The misalignment between what determines our faith and how we think. Okay, this was the recipe of our disaster. हमारा जो fate जैसा linked है और हम अपने बारे में जो सोचते हैं. I repeat the sentence. The misalignment between what determines our fate and how we think of our identities, who we are what I should do, what my life is about, मैं जो सोचता हूं, and what actually is playing out in the world are so misaligned that it is a disaster. Okay, I like this idea. And who feeds the ideas of our identity? I'm a Muslim, I'm a Shia, I'm a Vaishnav, I'm a Buddhist, I'm a Christian, I'm Tamil, I come from Ukraine. ये हमारा identities हैं. But actually, world को क्या कर रहा है decide? You don't even realize. Elon Musk is deciding our life. Right? Who decides our life? Technology. कहाँ से energy मिल रहा है? वहाँ से आपका decide हो रहा है life. I am an Indian. Okay, he is a Chinese. Our lives are decided by the trade routes of the world. Okay, so the misalignment between what determines our fate and how we think of our identities was a recipe for disaster. Okay, the second theme, this was the first thing. The first theme क्या था? That this idea of unity is a very casual whim. The idea of unity has not got into us properly. That we are connected, हमारा वो realization ही नहीं है. Okay, and he says this is where the problem lies. The second idea, he says, the second theme running through the lecture was the exhaustion of existing ideologies and the outlooks on life. I will make a reference here, although we can disagree here. There is a book called as, Future Shock, and also a book called as The Third Wave, written by Alvin Toffler. Okay, he is again a visionary guy, Alvin Toffler. In the third wave, he talks about information technologies. And he says, if you look at the world we live in, and he's writing in times when we have globalization happening, when Russia is collapsing, democracy is taking over, when there is some commitment towards environment issues. I'm talking about 1990s and 80s. Let's all work towards climate change. Let's all conserve the environment. Let's all work toward democracy. Human rights is a big deal there. Okay. He says we have come to a time when it is the end of the history. Look at the history. History में क्या था? Struggle ही तो था, conflict तो था. I am right, you are right. I am my belonging, your belonging, communism or capitalism or democracy. He says सब कुछ खत्म हो गया. It's like जो हमें अचीव करना था हम अचीव कर लिए. इसके आगे हिस्ट्री ही नहीं है. He called the 1990s as the end of the history. Okay, because there was no more clash of ideologies anymore. All agreed that democracy. I mean, if I look back at my times of 80s and 90s, trust me, I never knew the world will come to a stage which will see the rise of Nazis. Or the world will come to a stage when words like, secularism, democracy, liberalism will become abused. If you call yourself as liberal, आपको गाली पड़ने वाला है. You talk about equality, rights, you're called as a woke culture, कि दिखा रहा है. You are an urban Naxal. I could never imagine कि अरे ऐसा भी दिन time आएगा when talking about rights of the poor people will be seen as freebies. And that Twitter mein, that lady, I'm surprised. I mean, she has a photograph showing off her muscles and she has calls it as Brahmin genes. I don't know if you are aware of that. काफी बवाल हो रहा है उसके चक्कर में. And she is educated, well traveled, seen the world, having a good job in an MNC also. क्या दिमाग में आया होगा to talk about Brahmin genes, कि Brahmin gene के वजह से my body is superior. And she is completely unapologetic, about the fact that she comes from a high caste Brahmin. So I'm not saying वो right है wrong है, वो तो मैं सोचा नहीं जा रहा है कि ऐसा कोई बोल सकता है. But the fact is, she also has people applauding her. That's the dangerous part. देखो, हिस्ट्री में ना जोकर्स हमेशा होते हैं. across our history, we will have people who are evil, not bad, evil. Okay, but to find people applauding them, that's a dangerous one. That Hitler was an evil man, surprising नहीं, ऐसे होते हैं लोग यार. But एक पूरा nation, पूरा German society, a society which was full of knowledge, technology. अब देखना World War II के time का, what type of innovations Germans were doing, and innovations for killing machine. That is surprising. So it says that a time when ideologies are no longer an issue. Okay, they're fighting for ideology. I repeat, the second theme running through the lecture was the exhaustion of existing ideologies and outlooks on life. The lecture is Hegelian in its sensibility. I'll just give an idea, I'll just give a lead here. Hegel was a philosopher, and Hegel talked about that whatever you see is essentially what you can think of. Man is a product of his ideas. That's Hegelism. Okay. Agar aapka, I mean, very crudely, the idea that I can become an IAS officer is the start of you working towards IAS examination. The idea that I can become the US president, okay, is the start of you working towards it. Is सब चीज का जड़ जो है ना, ideas ही होते हैं. Without ideas, you are nobody. Okay, this is, the lecture is Hegelian in its sensibility because it's about ideas. Human beings will strive for meaning. Each civilization represents an achievement of sorts in this journey. In this context of the West, the Greeks were the font of creative worldly empiricism. The Romans as a font of secular law. Christianity brought, now see, इस पैराग्राफ में क्या बोल रहे हैं? That whatever we are today are the consequence of some ideas people had. I mean, think of Indian freedom struggle. अगर तिलक जी के दिमाग में यह आइडिया नहीं आता that we want Swaraj, not benevolence from the Britishers, India is for Indians. अगर ये आइडिया प्लांट नहीं होता, India would not have fought for independence. अगर गांधी जी के दिमाग में वो आइडिया नहीं आता that there cannot be a racial exploitation, throwing me out of the train was wrong and I got to fight it. अगर वो आइडिया प्लांट नहीं होता, I would not have a Gandhi ji. Somebody planted the idea that India में Muslims and Hindus can't live together, that their interests are divergent. अगर ये आइडिया प्लांट नहीं होता, I would not have had Pakistan. Okay, everything that you do is a consequence of somebody first thinking about it. Okay, so he says that the problem is that we are exhausting our ideology. हमारा जो सोच था, अब वो खत्म हो रहा है. कुछ नया आ रहा है शायद. Whatever we are today are a consequence of an idea we had, and we're trying to make sense of the world through that idea. It is our efforts. is a आपके मन में एक idea है. Idea that I can become an IAS officer and do something. So that idea gives you meaning for your life. So वो idea ही नहीं, सोच ही नहीं पा रहे हो, then you have no future for yourself. So I repeat, the second theme running through the lecture was the exhaustion of existing ideologies and the outlooks on life. The lecture is Hegelian in its sensibility. Essentially, talking about root of everything is an idea. Human beings will strive for meaning. Now, example दे रहे हैं कि everything we have, somebody must have started it. Okay, the idea of art, form, the idea of in architecture, somewhere was a Greek thing, he says, and not wrong. Greeks, I'm talking about 3rd or 4th BC की बात हो रही है. A time when the world was still very, very nascent, and the kind of sculptures they have made, the kind of buildings, the temple of Athena in Athens, I mean, if you see a photograph, you can't imagine that ये 3rd, 4th BC में बना होगा. You can't even imagine that thing. So the idea of art and creativity शायद शुरू हुआ था from the Greeks. Okay. Similarly, he says, Romans brought the idea of a law, equality. यहाँ पर secular का मतलब होता है equality ideas. Romans were at the heart of democracy, right? Somewhere. Julius Caesar was an emperor बाद में. He started as a part of the triumvirate. The parliament हुआ था and they debated and so on. Like the bigger emperor was Augustus Caesar and not Julius Caesar. The idea of equality was a Roman idea. Christianity brought an incandescent sense of transcendence and inner depth. देखो, before Christianity, religion was a very local thing. Like every tribe its own religion, every tribe its own ideas. With Christianity and missionaries, the idea starts spreading across the world. That's why I'm saying, that's why he says, is a transcendence, that ideas can be beyond religions. Idea can be beyond locations. That was the work of, because nobody else spread religion the way the Christians have. Okay, the Christianity brought an incandescent sense of transcendence and inner depth, but also bigotry and religious fanatism. What's the meaning of bigotry? Bigotry essentially means that I am superior than you in terms of faith. My God is different, your God is different. Fine, yahan tak theek hai. But the moment I say, my God better than yours, it now becomes bigotry. That my culture bigger than yours, that becomes, so Christianity ye bhi leke aaya. On one hand, Christianity brought that transcendence of ideas beyond locations and religion, but Christianity also brought bigotry and religious fanatism. The Renaissance restored the sense of free creativity. Renaissance is the revival of art, right? What was destroyed as a part of the civilizations, religious dominance of church, Renaissance वापस लेके आ गया. So everything is coming from some ideas. With the Renaissance, we had the spirit of free inquiry unleashed by the Enlightenment paves the way for democracy. 18th century in Europe is called as the phase of enlightenment of Europe, because 18th century mein, we had science, industrial revolution, mathematics. 17th century mein Newton and calculus. So 17th, 18th century was a time of the world discovering the science and its benefits. Is listing down that देखो पूरा world जो है is essentially a consequence of ideas and the meanings that we had. Greeks and creativity, Romans and say political systems, Christianity, it brought some equivalents along with bigotry, which was replaced by, thankfully, by the Renaissance. Renaissance was 13th, 14th century, starting from Italy and France, and then we had the rise of Enlightenment. The spirit of free inquiry unleashed by the Enlightenment paves the way for democracy. The modern aspiration for dignity of individual also transforms into movements of economic justice. The history is eloquently told, even though it is selective history, necessitated by the confines of a culture. These sensibilities also in parallel in various projects of domination. All of these movements have made the modern world, and all the giants have to be maintained. So it's a kind of a trace कि world कैसे change हो रहा है. But he laments the idea that somewhere the old ideas are now getting over. The times of Greeks gone, the times of the Romans gone, the times of Christian domination gone, the times of Renaissance is gone. Some of them have talked. 30s का मतलब है India is for talking about decolonization now. So we want economic justice. We do not want the rule of the foreign people. So these sensibilities also run to various projects of domination. All these movements have made the modern world. All of these gains have to be maintained. But while the old faiths are dissolved, ये paragraph में क्या है? The paragraph is about the ideas of the past and how they have changed the world. the inventions of the past and how they shaped the world. Okay. Para sentence kya tha? The second theme running through the lecture was the exhaustion of existing ideologies and the outpost life. ये पुराना खत्म हो चुका है. अब जो नया है वो बड़ा confusing है. But while all faiths have dissolved, what is put in their place is far more precarious and in some cases more dangerous. Our sense of self is more fragile. Very powerful idea. इतना कुछ हम invent कर चुके हैं. So much of information we have, so much of technology we have, but as people we have become very, very fragile. Okay, we get offended very fast. I mean, I am talking about not just a few of us. It's everybody. Okay, कोई कुछ कह लिया, मैं धर्म के नाम में क्यों कह दिया? ये किताब में इसके अगेंस्ट में क्यों बोल दिया? Why did he say that? और इतना गुस्सा that we are willing to take up guns for that. We are fragile. When you are violent by nature, essentially, okay, we are very, very delicate. We take offense very fast. I mean, आज के डेट में you can't even think about joking about religion, can you? You will get lynched. Okay, अगर आप ग्रुप में बैठ के and we are very, I mean, एक तो surprising है. Look at the devotion we have for political leaders. हमारा devotion होना चाहिए था for country as a nation. Okay, but we're so offended. अगर एक नाम के again, and they're political leaders. Political leaders आएंगे, जाएंगे, and political leaders are all about power, nothing else. वो कहीं से भी आगे बताएंगे वो. Okay, we are so fragile, we get offended. Our sense of self is more fragile. We increasingly turn to therapy for self-maintenance. हर सेकंड आदमी बोल रहा है काउंसलिंग जाऊंगा, थेरेपी करा लूंगा, okay, मोटिवेशन वीडियो दिखा दो, अच्छा नहीं लग रहा है, एंटी डिप्रेशन पिल खा लिया. भाई, depression definitely is a medical problem. You must go and get yourself checked. But it's so loosely used. Okay, it is actually trivialized. While we are conscious कि ऐसा problem हो सकता है and is a legitimate problem. But today लगता है many of them, it's fashionable to call themselves as they are depressed. Right? So if we are fragile, we increasingly turn to therapy for self-maintenance. As he writes, the long-starved powers of the soul reassert their claims and shift the foundations of our mind. The weak, the wounded, and the overstrained souls turn to psychoanalysis, which deals the problem souls under the guise of rationality and the prestige of the science. Psychoanalysis basically psychological theories है. Okay, it's a scientific thing. Then मेरा problem क्या है? My dreams can tell what my problems are. मेरा fear जो है, the fears have the roots in some trauma that I have had. I'm using science to heal my fears. But what he's saying is, actually the problem lies in your soul, not your thinking as such. The problem lies deep inside. We are unfulfilled. Deep inside, we have a guilt. Deep inside, we have a sense of loss of purpose. And we look at the therapies as a scientific way of solving it. I repeat the sentence. The long-starved powers of the soul reasserts their claim and shift the foundations of our mind. The problem हमारे soul का है. The weak, the wounded, and the overstrained souls turn to psychoanalysis, which deals the problem of soul under the guise of rationality. Science rationality है ना? A causes B, B causes C. So I'm troubled, tell me the cause called B. If I'm troubled, tell me the cause called A. I'm looking for rational explanation. But it says, okay, and why we do that? Because it has the prestige of science. Okay, but the problems is more deep. But the political manifestations of the crisis are more dangerous. He says, तीन problem है. On one hand, the old ideologies are no longer relevant today. Something new is happening because of which the world is very dangerous now. ये new क्या है? New का एक form है that as individuals we become very, very fragile, and that fragility has its roots in our soul, which is not watered and taken care of. One. Number two, he says the problems of the political manifestations of the crisis. ये जो आपका soul का problem है ना, ये आपको manifest करता है political choice में. Simple example. I have not learned any skills. I cannot do a modern job. I am not educated. I am a poor man. I have nothing to talk about in terms of achievements. Okay, I don't have the ability, to assert my superiority ho या मेरा skills हो. I'm a common man. Job नहीं है, education नहीं है, कोई मेरी सुनता नहीं है, and I don't matter. The solution should have been work, learn skills, work hard, make yourself useful, contribute. But what tedious है ना? The shortcut is, I am proud of becoming an Indian. Right? The shortcut is, I am proud of my religion. So my inability to assert my importance now reflects in the form of my cultural nationalism. And I'm a very angry man when somebody talks about my culture. Culture का मैंने धचे उड़ा दिया है. The way I talk to people, the way I talk to women, the way I conduct myself, I am worse than a hooligan. But I take offense very quickly. क्या आपने हमारे संस्कार के बारे में ऐसे कैसे बोल दिया आपने? And my response is my political choices I make. So I choose a political party which can fan my nationalism sentiments. I choose a political party that gives expression to my religious, what I think as religious. That becomes a dangerous recipe now. Have we got the point here? Because I am immaterial for people, so I show my power in the form of violence. अब दोबारा पढ़ो this sentence, see if it makes sense or not. Okay. But the politics, so it starts with that our sense of self is more fragile. I'm a very fragile man. Okay. A man who is full of ego is actually a very weak man. A man who gets offended very fast is actually a very weak man. Okay. बड़ी जल्दी गुस्सा आ जाता है. Okay. I'm fragile. Okay. But the political manifestation of the crisis is far more dangerous. The first, more of a mixed bag, is the growing power of the state. So when I start parking my insecurities in the form of nationalism, who am I empowering? Not myself. I empower the state. And a state, he says, is a dangerous animal. State के पास immense power है. Police, army, it can make laws, it has the legitimacy of a government. वो तो कुछ भी कर डालेगा यार. If I don't control the state, it's almost like, I have a tiger without any trainer. And I am making the state powerful because it makes me feel nice. Yeah? Okay. ये sentences ना are worth thinking. बैठ सोच के देखो. And this man is talking in 1930s. Remember that. No clue of social media. And back then, it was not the rabid nationalism that we have today. Okay. Maybe World War I khatam hua tha, and the world was looking for a long peace. They called World War I as, the Great War. A war to end all the wars. And us time mein, this man he can see, some of things around him that's disturbing him. Okay. So we look now, he says, why is the state dangerous? I repeat, but the political manifestations of the crisis are more dangerous. The first, more of a mixed bag, is the growing power state. ये जो fragile sense है, ये जो state बना रहा है, that's a very dangerous one. Why? He says, we look to the state for justice. Every common man, जब आपका problem solve नहीं होता तो किसको देखते हो आप? Right? The laws will make things right. We look for the Supreme Court कि यार हमारा problem solve कर दो. I don't have money, I don't have this, I don't have that. I wish the bureaucracy will respond to my, okay. So we look to the state for justice, but ultimately the state is a power that devours everything. Okay, as he writes, the state, which is the most powerful organization, is least hampered by inner scruples or outer checks. जो अंदर का conscience होता है ना, okay, morality, करूं ना करूं, the debate against one's conscience, the state has no conscience. And the state has no check of its own till enforced. Now, a parliamentary system जैसे बनाया गया है, 0 hour, question hour, speaker का role एक है, Rajya Sabha will have some role, special majority, we have got simple majority, no confidence motion. इतना क्यों किया हमने? ताकि गवर्नमेंट पे चेक आना चाहिए. The constitution का primary purpose was to check the government. Okay, constitution का primary purpose was the government must never have a free hand to do whatever it wants, because government already powerful hai. Government does not need more power. The government wants less power and more control. So it says the state on its own has no inner scruples, it has no inner conscience, it has no morality, and the state has no outer checks either. Man in the community is at least half civilized. As a person, कुछ डर तो है या मरूंगा, भगवान है, देखेंगे, what will my mother say, what my father say, पड़ोसी क्या बोलेगा, I try to be respectful. He says, man in the community is at least half civilized, but the state is still primitive, essentially a huge beast of prey. State is a symbol of power. It's a beast which can devour you. The most dangerous is we have no strong political opinion or effective law to restrain the predatory state. Okay, global level pe, what do we have to control the state? We tried UN. Okay, what can UN do? Okay, our political systems, okay, are overrun by what the leaders want to do. पूरा वर्ल्ड एक तरफ, चाइना अपना कर रहा है, राइट? कर लो तो कर सकते हो आप लोग. And I'm sure in China also, I mean China because convenient example है हमारे लिए, but ये story is for every country, including India, right? I like the sentences, you know, man in the community is at least half, कोई डरवर तो है कम से कम, but the state is primitive, essentially a huge beast of prey. We have no strong public opinion or effective law to restrain the predatory state. The most dangerous pathology is nationalism. अब समझ में आया? Why man as a fragile being, when he starts projecting the political power, it becomes a dangerous recipe. That's why I know the सबसे खतरनाक आदमी वो है who is powerless. Because when you're powerless and you want to be heard, you will do desperate things. Example of which is terrorism. अच्छा मेरा कोई सुन नहीं रहे हो? Okay, I take a gun, shoot 10 people. अब सुनोगे ना मेरी बात? The acts of gun violence in US, example of that. You ignoring me, you don't respect me, you don't care about me, I will destroy your family. And then देखते हैं मतलब सुनोगे कि नहीं सुनोगे आप. So the fragility of human being, when it starts manifesting in the state, becomes dangerous. And he says, इसी का sign है the pathology of nationalism. I made a statement once. what has nationalism done to us is, it has made us, okay, hate people who we knew nothing about. And it has made us love things that we don't practice. Okay, this is the pathology of nationalism. Identification with nations is old, but in the modern world, it colonizes all space. It becomes the ultimate source of meaning. He writes, nations have become mysterious symbols to those to whose protection we rally as savages to fetishes. You know, I repeat, nations have become mysterious symbols to whose protection we rally as savages to fetish. Nation. There is a difference between a country and nation. Nations have become a symbol जिसको बचाने के लिए we don't think twice before become animals. Fetish is that type of, you can say, a type of indulgence. Fetish is a type of an addiction. Okay, कि हमारा we become almost savage like fetish. मार देंगे, काट देंगे, and imagine we committing crimes of humanity in the name of nationalism. ना बच्चे को बॉम्ब कर देते हो. You are murdering hostages, common civilian population. You are raping women in the streets in the name of कि उनका अलग culture है, हमारा अलग culture है. Okay, so I repeat, nations have become mysterious symbols to whose protection we rally as savages to fetishes. The paradox of the modern age. The rational, emancipated individual. Modern times mein, we have science with us. In modern time, we have technology with us. And I want to believe we are far more rational than what our forefathers were. But ये एक dichotomy है. On one hand, I'm saying I'm scientific, I'm rational. But look at the mindless violence that we have. It says, the paradox of the modern age. The rational, emancipated individual, unable to understand the deep irrational source of his own disquiet, the age of individual liberation underwriting the power of a predatory state. एक तरफ, as a person, I want rights. As a person, I want freedom. As a person, I am scientific. But this person is making a state powerful, which is very irrational. This rational man is giving power to a society in the name of nationalism, which is highly irrational. I repeat, okay, the paradox of the modern age. The rational, emancipated individual unable to understand the deep irrational source of his own disquiet. The age of individual liberation. Underwriting का मतलब क्या है? It is endorsing. Underwriting का मतलब क्या है? I am protecting. Okay. The deep liberation individual is underwriting the power of a predatory state. पढ़ा लिखा हूं, good job, good life, and who am I voting for? I'm voting for a guy who is predatory in terms of religion, caste, and culture. I'm voting for somebody totally irrational in terms of, okay, from where they derive their power. But otherwise, I'm a rational man, I'm a scientific man, I'm educated. The age that dispensed with religion fills with an even more narcissist, domineering, and radicalized religion, nationalism. एक तरफ तो some of us can see the absurdities of religion. The fact that देखोगे ना, all atrocities that we have somewhere have the roots in religion. Women issues, problems related to, okay, our divisions within religion. वो आप caste बोल लो, वो sect बोल लो. वो आप, you talk in terms of race also. Somewhere it finds its justification through religion. कि हमारे शास्त्रों में लिखा गया है, हमारे कुरान में लिखा गया है. The Bible says so, right? So we find that it is irrational. At same time, it says that we fill it with more narcissism, domineering, radicalized religion called nationalism. Okay, so where do we turn? There are two hints of a direction. I hope you got the idea of the write-up yahan tak. Essentially, Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan is analyzing the problems that he's seeing around us. Around us matlab relevant even today. बता तो रहे 30s में, he says the world has come a long way. The world is a consequence of the ideas that we have had. Every major thing is a consequence of some old concepts and ideas that has built us what we have. We have now become more modern and whatever. However, we don't realize the kind of interconnectedness that we have. We don't realize the kind of community we actually are. The consequence of this is we as individuals are very, very fragile. Okay. And this fragile aspect of our lives is forcing us into political choices which are even more dangerous. The form of which he says is nationalism. See, देखो एक तो है ना राधा कृष्ण ने क्या कहा था, but I am also impressed by the fact that भानु प्रताप मेहता खोद के निकाल पा रहे हैं. He has that source बोलो, insight बोलो कि पढ़ के is identifying. अरे ये कहानी important है. Isn't that remarkable? I mean, if it's not people like them, हमें पता भी नहीं चलेगा what kind of people. We only know him as a Happy Teachers Day. पगड़ी पहन के बैठे हुए थे, look like a man who is from South India, and he was India's president. और क्या पता है बताओ? We have no idea what he was saying, what he was doing, no idea about. Okay, I mean, कुछ दिन पहले I happened to ask my son. ऐसी बात हो रही थी about president and prime ministers. I told him to tell the president's name. He gave some names. I told him, do you know who was Mr. Zail Singh? He said, yes, yes. Who was he? He was India's president. Gyani Zail Singh. मैंने कहा ज्ञानी कहाँ से आ गया? So his name was Gyani. Okay. आगे बोलो. No idea, no clue. Somewhere as parents were responsible, no? Gyani Zail Singh was a learned man. Gyani is ज्ञान से आया है. Indira Gandhi gave him the title called Gyani Zail Singh. तो बताओ उनका क्या ज्ञान था? We know him as a regal president. Through my entire childhood, I saw him as a man with sherwani, kurta, with a rose and a royal turban. He looked like the Maharaja of India types. Unka kya contribution tha? Trust me. Okay, most of us will not know this. So I'd say it is a great contribution कि भानु प्रताप मेहता बता पा रहे हैं कि the ideas of Radhakrishnan क्या था. Anyways, now he says कि राधा कृष्णा solution भी बताते हैं. Now that a problem है, fragile self, the problem is our world interconnected, we don't realize. The problem is the rabid nationalism which will devour us. So what's the way forward? So where do we turn? There are two hints to a direction. The first is openness. ये पहला aspect of direction है, openness. He writes, the great periods of human history are marked by widespread access of spiritual vitality derived from the fusion of national cultures with foreign influences. यहाँ पर जो openness है ना, it's about that we have to be more accommodating and accepting of other cultures. You know, Gandhi ji said so, right? Okay, open the windows, let the fresh air move in, but don't get swept away by it. Let ideas flow in. Let us interact with other cultures. This is, I repeat, the great periods of human history are marked by the widespread access of spiritual vitality derived from the fusion of natural cultures with foreign influences. If we take Judaism, as in the Jew religion, Judaism, we find Abraham came from Mesopotamia and Moses came from Egypt. Later Judaism shows the influence of Hellenism. Hellenism क्या है? The Greek culture, Hellenistic. Actually Hellenism Greek भी नहीं है. Yeah, okay, fine. Sparta तो Greek ही है. The queen of Sparta, Helen. Okay. So yes, in that sense, Hellenism. Asia Minor is Turkey. Asia Minor, Egypt, exercised considerable influence over Greek development. So what Greece was is not about Greece. It's about people who came from outside and made Greece what it is. It's a very good example of how he's tying threads. पहले बताया, Greeks was a great civilization of culture, remember? और यहाँ बता रहे हैं is a contribution of the culture from outside. So Greece was influenced by Asia Minor, Turkey, and Egypt. Okay, the creative genius of medieval world came from Palestine. Medieval world, okay, and the influence of Jordan. Jordan is the place we had Palestine. In a swipe against Eurocentrism, he writes, now that we have the whole world for our cultural base, the process of recovery and training in classics cannot cease with listening to voices of Isaiah, Paul, Socrates, and Cicero. These are, okay, the philosophers and contributors of the West. Now that we all are connected, now that the world is one culture, don't look for every wisdom from the Western world. Okay, yeah, it's his Eurocentric idea. Okay, he says, and a swipe is like he's taking attack at that. A swipe against Eurocentric, he writes, now that we have the whole world for our cultural base, the process of recovery and training in classics cannot cease with listening the voices of Isaac, Paul, Socrates, and Cicero. That would be an academic error, a failure of perspective. The others also who have participated in the supreme adventure of the ages, the prophets of Egypt, the sages of China, the seers of India, were guided post-disclosing to us the course of the trail. The whole world is our cultural base. A remarkable phrase to write. मैंने इसको ना मैंने रट लेना है. I have to mention Radhakrishnan. Any discussion on harmony, peace, East-West should meet together. There must be no bigotry, no nationalism. We must overcome this concept of hegemony. ये सब इसमें आ जाएगा. That if Radhakrishnan says so, that's an example of a quote. The whole world is our cultural base. A remarkable phrase, right one. The second hint, the एक था, solution is be more open. Open of, okay, the cultural diversity of the world. All cultures have something to give us. The second hint is, the core problem is that we confuse self with ego. Okay. It is ego that derails all ideals. Ego is about I am good, I am great, my interest, my issues, my nation, my culture. Okay, that's an ego. Ego that derails all ideals. The only meaning of spirituality is extinguishing of the ego. बहुत लोग confuse करते हैं religion and spirituality में. In fact, I remember interview बैठते हैं when I sit down for UPSC interview training. Lot of them write down meditation is a hobby. And I have not seen one guy answer with confidence. Most of us see meditation as an act of sitting in silence. Act of breathing. Breathing for what? Sit in silence for what? The fundamental idea of meditation is observing yourself without the clutter and the noise of outside. आप अपने आप को सोच रहे हो. So when you are observing breathing, okay, consciously breathe in, breathe out, breathe in. You can hear your own breath. Then you become mindful about yourself, who you are, your fear, okay, your compulsions, your maybe narrowness, and that's how your mind opens up. That's spirituality. Yes. बिल्कुल. बेटा ये जो लीड दे दिया ना, इसका तो मैंने क्या क्या बना देना है. Yes, absolutely. Yes. And that's what I mean by reflections, no? ये पढ़ने के बाद में, you all must sit down and think about ki what hit you on this. And you must read the article 3-4 times. ऐसे articles should not be आज एक हो गया पढ़ लिया tick. No. This article can read 5 times. कि जो निचोड़ मिलेगा ना, God knows it's worth maybe 5 days of studies or 1 month of study. So yes, you must sit down. In fact, some of you are not in the class. In the class, is telling the importance of reflections. UPSC journey is a part of that process. You're building yourself as a person, not simply course completion. The easiest thing is two continents come, they collide, a mountain was found. Right? Oh, that's what we are struggling about. The bigger issues are these things. Yeah, please do. I encourage this. Reflect on what all this tells you. Okay? It says, the only meaning of spirituality is extinguishing of the ego. When you realize who you are, you actually let go of yourself and your own superiority complex. You let go of your own inward-looking narcissism. So spirituality is extinguishing of the ego. But the root to this is engagement with the self, not another ideology. As he writes, the soul has found itself, is no longer conscious of itself in its isolation. In spirituality क्या होता है? You discover your soul, and the soul which is not an isolated thing anymore. Okay? Those who are anxious to live in peace with their own species and all life will not find it possible to gloat over the massacres of large numbers of men simply because they do not belong to their race or country. Agar genuinely you want to live in peace, and genuinely if you want to live in harmony, you cannot be happy about people dying, no matter who they are. You cannot celebrate कि अच्छा हुआ वो मर गया, because he was not my religion, not my nature, not my nationalism, and not my race. I repeat, those who are anxious to live in peace with their own species and all life, they will not find possible to gloat. Gloat का मतलब है to be happy about. To gloat about massacres of large number of men simply because they do not belong to the race or country. Our normal attitudes to other races and nations are no more than artificial masks, habits of thought and feeling, sedulously cultivated by long practice of dissimulation. हम जो भी सोचते हैं about others, whatever we feel about the others, is actually the consequence of what we are inside. They actually are masks of what we are as a person. I repeat. Okay. Our normal attitudes to other races and nations are no more than artificial masks. Who you hate, who you love. Which country you admire, which you don't admire. Which political system you want, which political system you don't like. Actually a mask. Mask of what? The habits of thought and feeling. Sedulously, means chupchap, cultivated by long practice of dissimulation. As we honor Radhakrishnan on Teachers' Day, we might as well read him, not in the spirit of a nationalist paean to this or that tradition, but as an open world trying to discover its yet unborn soul. What was that? You are starting a preparation now, I attend 3 years. Personality is like I fear a lot. What should I do? Start preparing. Your fear will go with time. Your fear will go with more readings you do. Okay. ऐसा कोई है नहीं जो fearful नहीं है. The only guy who doesn't have fear is a psychopath. Yeah? Make sense? It's a heavy one, right? 1.5-2 पेज के अंदर में it forces you to think about all the choices you have made. You know, in some groups, the बैठ के बात कर रहे होते हैं and all of that. Sometimes I'm asked my opinion. Okay, what do you think? And most cases, I say, yeah, ठीक बोल रहे हो यार, सही बोल रहे हो. Because I genuinely feel I cannot do much talking in a group that has decided its agenda already. Right? I very consciously last 2 साल के अंदर में I've got out of most of the WhatsApp group. I told my friends, okay, यार मुझसे मैनेज नहीं होता. Okay, यार तू बड़ा inefficient है. मैंने कहा हाँ यार मैं ऐसे ही हूँ. Okay, I'm a very nervous man and I can't handle it. I'm inefficient. I want a digital break. And I got off all the groups. My life has become very peaceful. The only groups I am in are largely my work groups, where I have some work to do. Okay. But I enjoy sessions of this kind because I'm hoping that most of you have some element of curiosity in you. Okay. That हाँ आप सीख सकते हो. To you guys I can talk. So the class is the forum where I say, I feel a bit secure. But of course, online thing always makes me scared. पता नहीं कौन क्या clip निकाल के कहाँ चिपका देगा. Okay. But ठीक है, that much of risk I'm willing to take. So I think you all must read this couple of more times and make reflections. एक रखो डायरी. Okay, once in a week, twice in a week, at your convenience, कुछ पढ़ा, कुछ जाना, कुछ सीखा. Write down what you think. Okay, अच्छा, I think this way. Oh, no, I don't agree with this. I disagree with this. अच्छा, ये समझ में नहीं आया. And a very good source of clarity is, उठाओ sentence, डाल दो chat GPT में, what does it mean? बहुत अच्छा समझाता है. Okay. And ज्यादा लिखेगा तो बता देना 100 words. वो 100 में दे देता है. So pick up a sentence. Okay. This idea. The core problem is we confuse self with ego. Explain in 100 words. It will do it for you. But पहले identify the कर लो. See, when I was looking for reading, no, the moment I saw Pratap Bhanu Mehta, मैंने कहा यार ये कुछ बंदा लिखा होगा. I had no idea of what he had written. But I know some names who are important. Yes, answering your question, that's how you overcome your fear. Curiosity, ask questions. Some people ask me, sir, how to make opinions? My answer is, first know the world, opinion बाद में बनाना. पर जान तो लो कि ऐसा ये opinion है. Once you know opinion का range, फिर जो आप बोलोगे ना, it will have lot of weight and have lot of import also. ठीक है? So, good, nice philosophical topic. The second topic is on agriculture reforms. I think I have run out of time. I have एक और meeting था मेरा. So my suggestion is, it's not a difficult article, but those of you who have done agriculture with me, it's a very relevant one. आप पढ़ेंगे, आपको सारा दिखाई देगा what is being talked about. ठीक है? So if you have not done it, I can try this next week maybe. But this article of Pratap Bhanu Mehta, घर जाके दोबारा पढ़ना. Make your notes, reflections, and I'm perfectly fine if you want to discuss it afterwards also. Yeah? Yes. That's what I was telling you in the class this morning. Develop the art of thinking. Okay. Current affairs mechanically mat karo. Okay. Many of you didn't even know this was a great article to read. ठीक है? So nice. Thanks a lot for being patient. Some of you had a long day. Okay. We'll catch up again next week. Yes, I know I told you Kafka, but when I am getting ready with Kafka, I realize I do not know him enough to tell you. So I took a shortcut. Okay, discussing one article. But I will discuss Kafka definitely, I promise you. I'll discuss some of the philosophies, not just Kafka, some of the other writers also. I'll do that. Okay. Bye-bye. Have a nice weekend. Catch you guys tomorrow. Next week on Saturday. Bye-bye. Batao, bachche. Yeah, bye-bye.
Sir, I just wanted to say something.
Yes.
That when the author was talking about nationalism and how people resort to nationalism to vent their anger and